Welcome to Matters of DeCorum. I'm Scott Corum. This is what matters to me. A big cup of coffee, have my slightly evil fidget spinner. Today, chatting a little bit about villains, more particularly villains I have made, or one in particular. I've had a couple of requests to talk about some of my villains, particularly the villains that have made it into my role-playing products. And I've been thinking about which ones to talk about. Some of my villains fall kind of into the NSFW, or not safe for work category. I've written some mature gaming products. Some of the villains are on the more lascivious side. That is neither here nor there at the moment. I'm going back a little bit further than that. This particular villain, I have a long and partially actual history with. I am talking about Mechaphisto, the Demon Lord of Technology. He's one of my more overarching villains. He's got a character arc throughout the Hot Chicks materials, but he's also older than that, much older. I lost a very good friend of mine almost 20 years ago, named Brian Sullivan. Man was a genius. He ran some games that are unlike any I've ever played before, and unlike any I will probably ever play again. Next level thinker. His Mechton games were brilliant. His Cyberpunk games were brilliant. And those took up so much of our time that I rarely had time for, didn't have much time to do much else. Played in a few games with him as a player as well. Ran for him a couple of times. We lost a good one. We lost Brian. He had a game world I may have talked about before. He referred to it as Britannia. It's a swords and sorcery, giant robots, and flying wooden ships. Kitchen sink, fantasy, space opera, giant robot game. And the people who he ran it for loved it. When he passed, we weren't going to be able to go back there, and that hurt. So a number of us got together, friends of Brian's, and decided we were going to try and write a tribute, a memorial. That project did not work out well. Everyone had a slightly different idea of exactly what we were trying to accomplish, and people's goals got mixed up with their intentions. And the good thing about that experiment, that process, is that I got to run Britannia for that group, which included at the time Brian's mother, who has also since passed. But I got to take Brian's mom through the world that he created and show her around a little bit. And that was worth the entire project. Also, some of the concepts that came out of it. Britannia may happen one day. I have my own game system now, and I write my own books for it now. And when I am confident that I can do the job properly, I'll write Britannia. I'll write a Twindra, the world in the middle of forever, or something like that. And properly memorialize my friend. But I needed a bad guy to run in those play tests and those experimental games where we're trying to put it together. And I wanted it to be a good bad guy. I needed to be a bad guy that was better than a Scott bad guy. Scott bad guys, Scott villains are generally pretty darn good. I learned a lot about my villain-based plotting from Brian. But I needed to... Normally, I will take someone else's ideas and I'll scot them up a little bit. I'll add my own perspective and take on it and throw some of my years of experience in doing this sort of thing into it. and generally see things get improved a bit. But I needed to Brian this thing up. I needed to make it something worthy. I went back to old inspirations. I needed a bad guy who had resources, who had access to high technology and high powers of cinematic magic. Someone who could test the new magic system and also the new designs for Mecha, and the old designs for Mecha. We threw it all in there. And I needed a personality that would make the party hate the bad guy. I needed a bad guy who was so hateful, so villainous, that taking him down would not only be a priority, but when it actually happened, it would be a actual physical feeling of satisfaction and joy. You don't build villains for games like that because you expect them to last. You might make them a recurring villain, or they might get, have some emergency teleporters or whatnot. A villain with an emergency teleporter is almost officially a Scott villain in the people and games around me these days, because I like villains who come back from time to time. I can't just smoke them in one sitting. I needed something more than a person, something more than a human, shall we say. I needed a demon. I needed a demon. I didn't just need a demon. One demon on his own, trying to threaten an entire party with giant robots, that wasn't going to last very long. I needed someone with rank in hell. I needed a demon lord. Now, one of those concepts I really love from Steve Jackson Games and Nominate is the hierarchy of hell. I've introduced similar concepts. And the concept is not unique to Nominate, but an infernal hierarchy definitely made sense. And having lords that had concepts behind them. You've got demons of lust and demons of avarice and demon of accidental surgical malfunctions, what have you. I needed an overarching demon. And then a name came to me because I was trying to come up with demons, and a demon was going to have a giant robot, a demon who could deal with mecha. Mechaphisto. It rolled off my tongue. Mechaphisto, like Mephisto. Faust's demon of note, and Marvel's demon of note, but with giant robots. Mechaphisto, demon lord of technology. He became hated very quickly in that campaign, even though we didn't manage to finish it. But I wasn't done with Mechaphisto. No, the name was too good. The concept was too good. I made a huge mistake a few years later, over a decade ago. I'm always going through computers. The one I'm using at the moment is actually one of my better ones, one of my longer lasting ones, because I pulled out all the stops and went to an angel investor and said, I need the best computer I can get for what I'm trying to do. This is a monster and it gets the job done. But I was going through computers more to the style of what can I afford? What can I get away with? Years ago, I saved up a good deal of money for my first scratch-built computer. And I asked a friend with certification in building computers to build me a computer. Never again. It was a problem. It was a process. It wasn't just Legos. It wasn't just snapped together. This motherboard wasn't working with that component. That component wasn't working with this component. I don't know what the jumper settings on this are. I bought a case for it, and the case had a big stylized M on the front. I don't know. I saw it in Fry's and had to have it. Not just a stylized M, but an M with a cog pattern. And the computer, it had a name before it was assembled. I called my computer Mechaphisto. Never name a piece of technology upon which you're going to rely after the demon lord of technology. That computer gave me nightmares for years. When it finally died, I took it apart to salvage what pieces I could, and the processor, the main chip for the processor, had overheated to the point where it had fused to the motherboard. I was able to pry it away eventually, but and I still have it to this day. I'm going to mount it in a plaque some point in time because its last act was to render as much of its insides unusable as possible. Well named. Well, come years later, and I'm writing a game called Hot Chicks, the role-playing game. It started off as a tongue-in-cheek kind of excuse to put cheesecakey pictures in a role-playing product and try and sell it, and I found out I couldn't do a half-baked product. I got too involved and too invested and wrote a game that probably deserved a far better name than Hot Chicks, the role-playing game. But for those people who did play it and who've gotten into it and indulged in the 200 some odd supplements that I've written for it, it's pretty good. It's pretty deep. It's been good practice for writing stuff going into the future. Available as pay what you want on RPG Now. There are three main enemies in Hot Chicks role-playing game. Three things preying on humanity. There are demons from hell, there are aliens from the far stars, and there's humanity itself, because the greatest monster has always been man. But since there were demons, there were demon lords and demon princes and major demons and minor demons. It's a divergent history. It's a history where things have been more mystical in the world than we've always believed. And when I came up with the history of the world and what happened and when things got so very bad for humanity, I wrote the game in 2007, 2008, somewhere there. It took a couple of years. And I envisioned a terrifying world in the far-off distance of 2015. It's a divergent history, so I don't feel that bad at having passed that point in time. In many ways that I will not go into, the dystopian future that I envision for us a mere 8 years in the future of the game, I was being a little optimistic. Be that as it may. The main divergence, the main thing that happened, the thing that made humanity a dinner plate as opposed to a race with some destiny, was the Y2K bug. It's part of a ritual, part of a great plot, part of a culmination of fear and panic that hell relied on to crack the great seals that would now allow demons to travel freely to the earth. And that was Mechaphisto. That was totally Mechaphisto's doing. To spread this panic and to have caused, through little whispers of inspiration or whispers of omission, as mankind was developing this technology, just forget to delineate the millennia. That's all you need to do. Oh, this computer's never going to last to the year 2000. Why would it have to be able to tell the difference? The Y2K bug caused such wide panic, and a ritual that was conducted almost coincidentally at the same time, coordinated by another demon, shattered the seals. Mechaphisto and the rest of the demon hierarchy were able to function freely on Earth. It is my job as a game designer, as a writer, and as a game master to make my villains someone you really hate, someone you need to kill, someone who needs to be opposed. Mechaphisto eventually got his own book in Hot Chicks, but not before he had influenced some other projects and other products. There are other villains who sprang up from his influence, Mechan being one. We'll talk about him in another video. But every time you saw technology going wrong or things going a little off, there was a series of books called Major Malfunctions in the Hot Chicks line, where technology went just off enough to cause some huge problems, difficulties, catastrophes. And you could trace a lot of that back to Mechaphisto. Mechaphisto got his own book because there was a meta plot I've been working on with Vic for years. And we decided we finally needed to incorporate it. Mechaphisto's big plan was cogs. He would produce these cogs, these magic items, no bigger than that, size of a quarter, stylized black cog with a letter M in the middle for Mechaphisto. It came in different colors. The M was in different colors, and some of the trim around it. There were magic items. What they would do was they would bond to common everyday items, guns, wrenches, computers, cars, what have you, and make them better. Make them essentially magic items, demonic magic items, infernal magic items. Mechaphisto could see through the cogs. He could control an item that a cog was linked to if he felt like it. He put thousands of them out there so that he couldn't focus on all of them at once, but every so often something would catch his eye. It gave him a constant and unending presence in the game. He would loop humans into contracts to deal for him. Excuse me. You need an advantage. You need an edge. That gun's not going to kill that guy, but it might. It might. Put this on it. Yeah, it's a low-level cog. It's a white, but it'll make the gun shoot straighter, make it more accurate. Give it a little more range. Hits harder. It'll hit quite a bit harder. First one's free. Here, put this on your gun. If you need another edge, come back. First one's always free. Even if it's a higher level one, first one's always free. There are whites and yellows and greens and blues. But the dealers, they got a red to use for their own purposes, whatever they felt they needed it for. Once you attach a cog to an item, it is a part of that item forever. If you decide, oh, I put this on the frame of my gun, but I can replace every other part of I'll just take all the parts out and put it on a new thing and discard the frame. Well, as soon as you've done that, the cog was on your new gun. You'd have to just completely discard the item. You'd never be able to use that or any part of it again if you wanted to get rid of the cog, which meant that your very expensive items that you wanted to enhance with these cogs, you not want to get rid of. And most people wouldn't want to get rid of them anyway. They were an amazing edge. They were sold all over the place, mostly to criminals. That second chance vest isn't going to stop that machine gun, but it might. This car, you can get in a lot of street races with this car, but you're not going to win a lot. Or maybe you will. You want to hack that database? Oh man, this system, that's old and antiquated, and it's never going to hack that system, but maybe it will. First taste is free. Mechaphisto spread influence through that in so many different ways and places. I got to giving them the player characters for free. God. Hey Max, how's it going? I was running a game in the scenario of the War of 2018, the War for Hell, which finished off the Hot Chicks product line. Not the world's history, just that product line with that name. And Max was playing a disciple of the blade, and he kept building bigger and better swords. With the thought towards, gee, Scott, you can't break this one, can you? And I broke them all. I broke all of his swords, all but one. He made this one, and he put heart and soul into it, and he made it just this amazing thing, and it did incredible amounts of damage, and it could survive a pony nuke, and it was a great little piece of equipment. So during a fight with a demon put a cog on it, and then it was Mechaphisto's sword. There was no amount of the sword that he could replace, that he could fix, that he could remove to get rid of the cog. The sword was now Mechaphisto's, and there were things that it simply wouldn't do to demons because Mechaphisto didn't want it to. Yeah, it cuts really great, but not that demon. Useless against most of the things I don't want it to hurt. The demon, so he could make the laws of physics and materials change for those items that he had cogs on. Max was so pissed, but you know, if you have established a you can't wreck my piece of equipment rule with me, it's my job to show you that, yeah, I can. Well, as a game master, I respond to challenges very poorly sometimes. Worst, cogs could go on cyberware. And if once a cog goes on a piece of cyberware, that's on you. That's okay, if I cut off my arm, then I won't have the cog. No, the cog will just show up on some other piece of cyberware unless you take all of it out. And then as soon as you put any in, you're going to have the cog again. That's the magic of them. It's a level of binding. The item's actually bound to the soul or spirit of the item it's put onto, not the matter of it. So if you bind it to something that's already a part of you, then yeah, robots with cogs on them, well, they become Mechaphisto's robots. Mechaphisto in the book Mechaphisto, the Demon Lord of Technology, has no stats. He's a demon lord. He's not the kind of thing that player characters are actually able to beat. They can defeat him. They can stop his plans. They can cut him off of the path. He can't manifest on Earth directly, although he can generate avatars to carry messages and do bits and pieces of work. But no, he's in Hell at the Hell Forges, producing the armaments and magical items that keep Hell functioning and keep demons a combat force on the Earth until such time as that stopped, 2018. Moving on, in Destiny 2025, which will be the product line that carries on from Hot Chicks. Oh, Mechaphisto is still around, but things did not go well for him in the War in Hell. One of the things that was an influence in the War for Hell, aliens and demons hybridizing and fighting and trying to take Hell over away from the hierarchy as it existed, was there was a certain influence from the outside, the Eldritch, the Lovecraftian stuff. And Mechaphisto became corrupted. He is now a creature of the outside, dedicated to the destruction of the universe, where as a demon lord, he was actually kind of part of the mechanics of it. So he has a future as a twisted version of himself, moving forward, tortured and opposing every effort to restore the order of the universe to its proper function. You know, I had to once ask myself if I didn't give Mechaphisto stats because I didn't want to see him get beaten, because I didn't want stories of, oh no, we totally killed Mechaphisto. I was able to do way more than his DR and he failed the role. And, you know, that's one thing. I get stories from people from time to time. And if you have stories about how you've beaten up or defeated my monsters, my scenarios, or leave me some comments, send me some email, let me know, because I love those stories. But every so often there's a villain who I have to ask myself, do I care too much about this villain to put him in a book? Do I care too much about this character to know that out there are player characters stomping a mud hole in him and walking it dry? Nah. Now, some villains are just meant to be bigger than life. Some villains are meant to be more of an influence than a fist fight. You can stop Mechaphisto. He'll usually be back, but you can stop him. There's a lot of value in a recurring villain. I like the personality that grew up around him. He's arrogant, and he knows humanity owes most of its technological advances to him. Not that he's the one who gave people fire. You know, mankind discovered fire, and Mechaphisto's whisper in their ear was, "Wouldn't it be awesome to see it in someone's hair?" He took the greatest device and system for sharing academic information ever, something that could have propelled humanity through the stars, and turned it into a way for us to share pictures of cats and boobs. You have to appreciate a character like that, someone who's been able to operate in a very subtle fashion. But when the gloves came off and he came out swinging, and hell has robots on Earth that you don't want to mess with. You can go to the weird lady down the street with the auto shop and get this very expensive upgrade to your car. It's not illegal. There's no laws against having a magical cog someplace on your car, but it gets way better gas mileage, goes way faster, it's way harder to break. Maybe it'll occasionally accelerate without your knowledge and run over a small group of nuns and orphans, but you know the mileage. Well, that's Mechaphisto. In a nutshell, if you have any questions or comments about my villains, leave me a comment. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, give me a thumbs down. Feedback is feedback. Again, questions, comments, suggestions about villains or videos you want to see me do in the future. Especially if you have experiences with Mechaphisto in your role-playing games, leave me a comment. I love getting comments. You'll love leaving me one. If you want to see these videos as soon as they come out, hit the subscribe button. If you do hit the subscribe button, hit the little notification bell next to the subscribe button so you are notified as soon as the videos come out. If you super dug the video, I invite you to hit me up at my Patreon page, www.patreon.com/ScottCorum, and consider donating. Absolutely anything helps and lets me make more videos more often. Thank you very much for your attention. Yeah, there's going to be some more of these. I like talking about my villains, and I stay up nights creating extra villains, because you've got to have a lot of villains if you're going to have a lot of heroes. There's got to be at least a 6-to-1 ratio of villain to hero, because that way everyone gets someone to beat up over and over again. You've got a few weeks. That's why Batman's got such a big gallery of foes. In the meantime, thank you very much for your attention. I'm Scott Corum. This is What Has Mattered to Me, and I'll see you next time on the next Matters of DeCorum.